I applied for a law enforcement position and was asked by the interview board if I would pull people over solely for being Native 3 times before I walked out.
Hi, welcome back to another video.
I'm Alan.
Right, okay. I've been replaced. Right, okay. Right, that makes me Caroline, I guess.
The crane.
Oh, lovely. This is less cute, what we're going to be looking at now. It's the most racist states in America. We recently watched a program which was hilarious, and if you can,
on YouTube.
I don't know if it's YouTube or Netflix or wherever it is. YouTube.
YouTube.
Right. There's a man who's from the UK, went over to what was supposed to be the most racist town, and he found out it wasn't quite that. It was somewhere right next door to it.
They were all right.
Yeah. And then he got an interview with the head of the KKK. This is a black man. Got an interview with the head of the KKK because he said he was from BBC. Watch it. It does not mean...
It is good. It is.
He really does get this man to say a load of... And when he says BBC, he's not referring to the British Broadcasting Corporation, i.e. TV.
No,
but
just watch it to find out.
The gentleman thinks he is. But we came across this. The 10 most racist states in America. So I'm guessing that place is going to be among here. But I'm not quite positive.
What it was called, though.
No. But we'll see in a minute. Racism, we know it exists everywhere.
It's everywhere.
We know it's wrong. We know it shouldn't happen. We know that in America, it seems, from what we see on the TV, to be more prevalent in certain areas. But let's find out and see what happens.
Racism, an issue this country has faced since the beginning. From slavery to Native American genocide to Jim Crow laws and internment camps, racism has always been a part of U.S. history. And although the nation has enacted many federal and state-level laws to prevent the woes of the past from ever happening again, racism is still a problem today. Now, racism is defined as any prejudice or discrimination against a person based on their race or ethnic group. And while most people can identify that this is morally wrong, many still unintentionally subscribe to racist views. And according to anonymous social media listening data, some people have a lot of racist views. Of course, it's difficult to quantify exactly how racist the state really is, as most racist people aren't going to admit to a poll worker that they're racist. Many do, however, get pretty bold when they can hide behind a screen. So location-based monitoring of tweets and Google searches gives us a pretty good indication. Remember though, while the following states do have many racist people, most people in these states are not racist. But if you want to see more videos concerning race, such as the 10 states with the highest black or white populations, let's hit 5,000 likes. These are the 10 most racist states in America.
Before we get too deeply into this, because it's going to be intense and we realise that, what I do think is with racism, a lot of people just assume it's racism against black people or Chinese people, but racism has existed for thousands of years. It's not something that's come about. If you go back in time, slavery, Egyptians, Africa... Slavery in Africa started thousands of years before the first white person arrived there. So it's something that's been innate or part of every culture at some point, whether it be racism on colour or racism against different tribes. It happened for thousands of years. Like, for example, if you're a white person, the Chinese would consider you much lower and make you their slaves. The Roman Empire took slaves from all over the world. This is nothing new. It's just that perhaps now we're starting to deal with it and move forward, certainly in Western cultures. I mean, obviously there are still many countries that are very racist. But let's see anyway, let's see how it gets on.
Number 10, Maryland. On the surface, Maryland doesn't seem very racist. It's one of the least systemically racist states with the 12th lowest income gap by race, and is the 11th most racially integrated state in terms of the workplace, schools, and voting booths. So it's surprising that 16.59% of Twitter accounts discussing race in the state used hateful or derogatory language, especially since many researchers believe poor education to be the biggest cause of racism, and Maryland is the 4th most educated state. But considering its racist past, it also makes sense. Interracial marriage was illegal here until 1967, both Rising Sun and Thurmont, two small towns.
Illegal?
I
1967.
know,
That's only 3 years before I was born. That is...
wow, that is a long.
Just you wait.
In northern Maryland were once home to the headquarters of a KKK chapter, and despite Maryland's nickname being the Free State, it was actually one of the last states to outlaw slavery, not doing so until November of 1864. So while very few people today act on their hateful views, with only 11 hate crimes based on race or religion reported in 2020, that dark history of racism still lingers here, especially in the more rural parts of the state. Number 9. West Virginia. There are countless Reddit posts by people of color who are scared to even visit West Virginia due to its reputation as the most racist state. And our data kinda backs it up, as 16.78% of West Virginian tweets about race used hateful rhetoric. But unlike in Maryland, where the racism is mostly subtle, many West Virginians are openly racist. Multiple Reddit users say they commonly hear white people say the N-word, and many others advise POC to keep quiet and stay out of bars.
Now, this is something that always confuses me. Now, we know as a white person to use the N-word is extremely bad. But as a black person to use the N-word, it's okay.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that we would ever use it. Personally, no interest in using it whatsoever. But why? I am not in a situation where I know people that I could ask to find out why this is, because I really don't. I don't understand why black people use it again to their friends.
Yeah, but like, as you say, it's friendliness.
Yeah.
Not saying it to be nasty to each other.
But yet, if a white person says it, it's
yeah,
wrong.
if we went up to that two friends and called them both it.
Yeah. I mean, literally, you could be in the situation with a group of your own friends calling each other that, and you say it, and suddenly you're racist.
Mm.
And I'm not saying it's wrong, I'm not saying it's right, I'm just saying I don't understand why. So if you are watching this and you can explain it to me why, I'd gladly listen. I'm not in the situation I'll ever use it. It's not something I want to use, but it's just something that... And I think sometimes, I mean, what they were saying about Maryland a moment ago, the fact that it could be just education on what's right and wrong to say, more than necessarily that. Whereas other states, it probably is a generic racist thing. And I'm not commenting negatively or positively either way. I'm just curious on that particular word.
We noticed it in the new Will Smith.
Yeah, the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air remake. It's brilliant.
They
brilliant.
were all calling each other it, like, was it episode 1? It was like...
Yeah, and then when
it was the norm.
And then a white person said it in there, I'm sure they did, and it was big uproar. And it's something I've never experienced. I don't know. I've never used it. To be honest, I've probably never seen somebody in a group talking like that in real life. So I don't know. But anyway, let's get on because we've digressed a little bit there.
Yeah.
Racist views and drunkenness often lead to dangerous situations. One Redditor in particular noted, "There is a lot of racism here. I know some of y'all are going to tell me you don't see it, but I know you do. When we have to tell people to wear WVU gear to blend in and to stay away from bars for their safety, that's a big racism problem." Of course,
what's WVM gear?
I don't know, that's what I was wondering that. Wear it to blend in.
Right.
it's also worth noting that most West Virginians are incredibly welcoming, but as 97.4% of the population is white, many people here, particularly in the more rural parts, have never seen someone with a different skin tone in their entire life. And as many West Virginians are wary of people they don't know.
That makes sense. Not right. Don't get me wrong. I'm not
Yeah.
saying it's right. There's a fly buzzing around if
I
you're
know,
wondering.
but I
Monty.
just touched the headphone. I thought it was the fly. So I've just.
I give up. Can't take her anywhere. Right. But no, what I'm saying is if 97% of people have never...
Yeah, but how have they not seen that? Surely, does that not include on the TV?
No, it's been in real life. That 97% of people are white there, and many haven't actually ever seen somebody who isn't white. So you can imagine if you're miles away from anywhere on a farm, you probably haven't.
Probably won't travel there as well. Probably
And
just
if
stay.
the generic sort of racist views are there from years ago, they've had no experience to realise that the racist views are fake. So that
They're
could
not.
be reason behind it, but it's strange, this. It really is.
This ignorance is likely the cause of their racist views. But hey, at least the Mountain State has the 10th lowest employment gap by race and the 2nd lowest income gap. Although that may also be because there are literally no good paying jobs, so there can't even be a big gap since everyone's poor. Number 8. Arkansas. With signs like these and a former sheriff of Arkansas County caught on camera saying racial slurs, including the N-word, it's no surprise Arkansas is on this list. It is a surprise that it's only one of 2 southern states to make the cut, however, as many first-hand accounts claim the South to have the most in-person racism. But that might just be because a majority of the racist population in southern states is...
Just hang on a minute. I'm just going to go back a little bit. There.
the South to have the most in-person
Does
racism.
That not
but that might just be
remind you
because
of that route that they took in that program. It's just maybe it looks similar, but you know the one I was mentioning about with the gentleman from the BBC looks similar. I can't remember where it was though.
I don't actually think it. I don't know.
Anyway.
because a majority of the racist population in southern states is older, and many older people don't use Twitter. Overall, 16.83% of tweets discussing race in Arkansas did so in a hateful way, which shouldn't be a shocker considering the natural state is home to the largest number of hate groups per capita, as well as the modern-day Ku Klux Klan, which is headquartered in Zinc. And speaking of Zinc, it's only a 20-minute drive from Harrison, Arkansas, which many deem to be the most racist town in...
Yeah, I think...
That was what was watching about.
Yeah, because I remember the Zinc.
Yeah. Yeah, they were saying that the most hated town for racism, when he went there, as a black man, there wasn't racism that he was getting.
No, they welcomed him. Didn't someone pick him up or take him?
Yeah, somebody drove him round and...
No, from the airport. They took
Yeah.
him back to the airport, and
Yeah.
then the guy, when he went home, actually donated money. We'll let you watch it. I don't want to give it all away.
But they said that the town gets the image, but it could be that Zinc or something that's the actual problem in the area because the
But even
KKK
then-
comes from there or something.
yeah, but even then, when he went into there, it was what?
Anyway.
in America. Now, sure, not everyone in the town is racist, and a lot of the younger generation is trying to change its reputation. But many of the older residents are actually proud of their hateful views and have no shame showcasing them to the world. Number 7. Kansas. Kansas is the first state on our list where the data shows there's a systemic problem with racism. The income gap by race is the 34th worst of any state, and in terms of racial integration, it's 37th. Now, I've been all over Kansas, and I'm honestly surprised it didn't rank even lower. In Wichita, for example, it feels like there's a literal line dividing the black, Latino, and white neighborhoods. The same goes for the Kansas City suburbs, where, as one Redditor put it, I think the problem is that the older generation have decided that minority influx, or even the perception of their presence, explicitly causes loss of property value and desirability. Another Reddit user from rural Kansas claimed, "You'll definitely hear unkind comments regarding minorities, in particular, quote-unquote, illegals and Muslims." I guess it makes sense that many of the elderly here have racist views, as some of them were alive when Jim Crow laws still existed. And unfortunately, at least some of that racism seems to have been handed down to the younger generations of Twitter users, because 16.95% of all tweets referencing race in Kansas did so in a hateful or derogatory way. Number 6. Wisconsin. Outside of dairy, drinking, and the Packers, most non-Wisconsinites probably don't know much about the state. But now you have something else to add to the list, because in 2020 alone, 74 hate crimes were committed in Wisconsin, which also...
That is a lot. I mean, you hear of hate crimes, but it doesn't... To me, Wisconsin was always sort of more... I would have thought it more relaxed area, but I don't know.
It just so happens to be the worst state in terms of racial integration and 43rd in terms of income gap by race. Even the Milwaukee Bucks president publicly chimed in on the issue, saying, "Very bluntly, Milwaukee is the most segregated, racist place I have ever experienced in my life." Which makes sense considering that many of Milwaukee's suburbs, such as Brookfield, were formed by racist policies like redlining and blockbusting. Even the schools in Milwaukee were segregated until the 70s. One Redditor from Brookfield shared their experience. "Never in my 30 years have I experienced so much racism and prejudice. I share the same socioeconomic status as many folks in this community, and I am highly educated. Nonetheless, it seems as if all black people are quote-unquote thugs to them. I have been subjected to harsh stereotypes at neighborhood gatherings and been stopped and pulled over many times on my way to or from my house for no reason. In fact, my husband had the cops called on him and was accused of breaking into our own home just for moving furniture." Considering testimonies like that, the fact...
Right, so you move your own furniture and you... That is ludicrous. That is absolutely ludicrous. I mean, there's a video I want to do. I've seen it online, and it's comparing the UK police training to American police training, and it is so different. It's like a different thing altogether. I want to do that, and I will do if we can get a chance at some point. But that, somebody trying to arrest you because you're moving your own furniture in your own house.
The fact that 16.98% of tweets referencing race were hateful isn't exactly a shocker. Number 5. Hawaii. The land of rainbows isn't colorblind, but the issue...
Surprising, that.
Hawaii, I mean, I would have never have thought that in a month of Sundays.
No.
I would have thought Hawaii, beautiful, the run. I mean, I would think of it as a non-white place.
Yeah. Not
a white place that then pushes people to one side or anything like that. So I don't see, I suppose, looking at where think of it from a white to coloured, black, etc. But the people who live there, are they the ones doing the racism? I don't know. Let's see.
Isn't what you might think. While 17.06% of tweets referencing race in the state were deemed derogatory, upon further research, many of the offensive tweets were coming out of a place of ignorance rather than hate, due to the popularity of rap music and simultaneous lack of a heavy black culture in the state. One Redditor explains, "You'll hear the N-word a lot on the Big Island. Not by racists, but by people who grew up on rap and don't fully realize the severity of the word." Another user says, "The racism you'll inevitably experience won't be hostile, but it'll be very ignorant. I can't stress that Hawaii and the mainland have much different definitions of political correctness. Everyone makes comments about and jokes about race." Now, in terms of institutional racism, Hawaii is actually the least racist state. It has the lowest employment gap by race, the 8th lowest income gap, and was ranked as having the best racial integration of the workplace, schools, and voting.
That's more like what I'd expect. I can understand that lack of knowledge, because they are separate, if you like, from America. They're not.
Yeah.
It's not like the sort of an island just next to America. They've got a bit of distance there, and they're getting the American input into it. But if they've not got the, like I was saying before, about not having the group of people around you that you can learn from and understand why this is wrong. I mean, we know that N-word's wrong, but if you're in a place where there's nobody there to say, well, this is why, you're going to say it. Don't you agree?
Booths. Number 4, Mississippi. Wait, what? You're telling me we're actually not the worst at something for once? Finally! Mississippi! Well, yeah, I guess you could say that. But before you get too excited, the percentage of tweets mentioning race in a hateful way is still 18.59%. That's a big jump from Hawaii. And since Mississippi is the only deep south state on this list, even though most Reddit users agree that it's probably the most racist region in the country, this study obviously isn't perfect, so who knows? Maybe Mississippi is actually the worst. I mean, they have the 8th largest employment gap by race and the 12th largest income gap, even with the lowest incomes in the nation. Heck, last year actually marked the first time in history that Mississippi voters opted to remove a Jim Crow-era law from their constitution. The provision, which was designed to prevent black Americans from holding office, made Mississippi the...
So this Jim Crow law, or whatever it was, is something like the American apartheid system, where they were stopping people of colour to have any powerful positions, I presume. Tell us in comments, because we've never heard of it.
The only state that could withhold a person from winning an election, even if they garnered a majority of the vote. And I guess it worked, because a black candidate has never been elected to any statewide office here, despite it being the blackest state in the country. Number 3. Maine. While the laws and workplace in Maine seem to be actively anti-racist, resulting in the 2nd lowest employment gap by race and the 17th lowest income gap, that doesn't mean many people here aren't still racist or ignorant. Over 95% of Maine is white, and much of the population is very rural. So outside of the Portland area, many Mainers have never seen a non-white person. And this ignorance seems to be the basis for most racism here. As one Reddit user describes, "Thing is, the people up here don't even know they're being racist. Like when I'm eating something unfamiliar and Asian for lunch at work, I'll get rude comments about eating rice or weird animal parts. My coworkers also walk by saying ching chong ching chong. They think they're being funny, but it's offensive." Many Redditors have also noted there being an unusually large amount of Confederate flags, despite Maine being about as far away from the Confederacy as you could get, and that tons of white people casually say the N-word and hold racist views against the Somali immigrant population. This translates to the online world as well, as 19.25% of tweets regarding race used hateful or racist language. Number 2. South Dakota. Despite being right next to Wyoming, which is one of the least racist states according to the study, South Dakota definitely deserves its spot on this list. Not only are 20% of tweets referencing race in the state derogatory, South Dakota also has the 2nd worst employment gap by race and the worst income gap. Wallet Hub actually ranks it as the 3rd most segregated state in terms of the workplace, schools, and voting booths.
I know this is digressing quite a bit, but if you look at their state building there, I'm presuming that's where it is, each time it's done that, they're almost identical. It's almost as if we've got one plan. Looks a bit like the White House, let's build it.
Yeah.
And things only get worse when you consider that South Dakota is one of the least white Great Plains states, with just 84% of the population identifying as white and a large percentage identifying as indigenous. One Redditor states, "I won't sugarcoat this. I have seen firsthand landlords and employers reject applicants solely from Native American names and appearances. They told me to my face they do it regularly." Many other Reddit users talk of similar experiences, such as this account. "I applied for a law enforcement position and was asked by the interview board if I would pull people over solely for being Native 3 times before I walked out." South Dakota has had a long history of racism towards Native Americans, and it's seemingly still very present today. Now, before we get to number 1, make sure you leave a like and subscribe, and let me know what you...
Right, before we look at that last one, I think that it's going to be somewhere that we just don't expect. Because I thought it was going to be sort of the bottom half of the country where you get the sort of the leftover from the Civil War sort of views. But what do you think it'll be?
No idea.
I think it's going to be in the middle of the country, miles away from... And there are people there that just don't see anybody apart from white. That's my guess.
You think the most racist state is. But without further ado, number 1, Delaware. What the heck? Delaware? That's so random. I know. I literally thought the exact same thing and quadruple checked to make sure the data was accurate. But it's true. 21.4% of users tweeting about race in Delaware did so in a derogatory way. In contrast, Vermont was far and away the least racist state, with only 6.96% of tweets about race being hateful. So yeah, you can do better, America. And especially you, Delaware. Who even lives in Delaware? Oh wait, my dad does. This may be both the first and last list that Delaware ever appears on, as the state.
Right. There was a lot there that shocked me. I don't know about you. I mean, my gut feeling was the side of America with New York, etc., and the other side with California, etc., would all be pretty much normal, if you like. Not particularly one way or the other. But when they was going through that, it seemed to be on the East Coast, the New York side of it, that it seemed to be very, very racist in some places, which surprised me. I would have thought... I can understand areas that don't have the context to work with, if you like. People who've heard rap music, they've heard the language in it, they don't understand, like we don't understand to a great degree, but we know we shouldn't say it, but they don't realise that part. What do you think?
You always put me on the spot, don't you?
Why not? You called me old earlier.
I just find it weird, well, not weird, hard to put it into words without coming across wrong.
Right.
I'm wanting to say I watched something, I don't know, it's probably going to get into.
Go on then.
About, there was an English lawyer that fought a case of a man in Mississippi, do you know the one I mean? He was on death row and he ended up getting executed. And he'd killed a white policeman. And they'd actually said afterwards that his girlfriend had gone to the police station and said he was with me, and they actually told her, no, go away. And they did, basically, the guy that was dealing with it said, I do think he was innocent.
Yeah.
That Mississippi is like itself, isn't it?
Well, it was one of the big ones. One of the big ones.
Yeah, but I thought there'd be like more round there, sort of. They'd have those views round there. But then it does make sense that, well, I can't remember which one it was with it. They're quite rural, but you're not gonna travel out, are you? We don't really travel, do we? We don't.
I mean, we're not in a high mixed area. There are colour, there are Chinese, there's different nationalities, Indian, etc.
I'd say Polish and Latvian.
Yeah. And there is Indian an awful lot in Yorkshire because of the fact that obviously the United Kingdom basically ran India, Pakistan for a long, long time. At the end, they gave them the option that they could come over here. And there's lots of... excuse me. But we just don't have the context that some areas do.
Well, I know when I moved down south, we were in the minority when I went to school.
Anyway.
And I got on with them. They're different.
Right, so we'll leave it there before we cause World War III. And this is a bit of a heavier one than most that we do. So please do have a look at some of the more light-hearted ones on the videos at the end.
We won't do anything like that one again.
Well, you never know. You never know. If you like it and comment, we maybe will. But it did seem to go a lot darker than we expected.
Yeah.